Welcome back. Today we are making this completely vegan Funfetti cake. It's actually super easy to make. We start by adding 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour into our bowl, along with 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar. Then I'm adding in 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt and 1 1/3 teaspoons of baking soda. I'm going to give that a quick whisk to get all of those ingredients incorporated, and then we're going to set our dry ingredients aside and start to work on our wet ingredients. We're adding 1/2 cup of a vegetable oil or any flavorless oil into a separate bowl, along with 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract that's also mixed with 1 1/2 teaspoons of almond extract, 4 teaspoons of apple cider or white vinegar, and 1 cup of water. Now I know the vinegar sounds like a lot, and it is, but you need that much vinegar to activate the baking soda in our dry ingredients. It kind of replaces the eggs in this recipe. So next we're pouring our wet ingredients into our dry ingredients and just mixing them together slowly. So I start with the spatula here, and then I start using a whisk to get the batter nice and smooth. You want to mix just until your ingredients are incorporated. You don't want to overmix your batter or your cake layers can turn out tough. So our last ingredient we're adding in is 1/2 cup of rainbow sprinkles, and my one word of caution here is to make sure that you read the label on whatever sprinkles you want to use to make sure that they're vegan as well. So once our sprinkles are mixed in, we want to pour our batter into our prepared cake pans pretty quickly, or else the sprinkles can bleed in your batter and give it kind of a strange color. So I've added parchment rounds and sprayed my 6-inch cake pans, and I'm pouring my batter right into those. We're going to bake these in a 350-degree preheated oven for about 35 minutes. Once our layers are baked and fully cooled so they're not warm at all to the touch, we're going to take a serrated knife and just level off the tops. This step is optional because the cake layers don't have a huge dome on top of them, but it does make it a lot easier to stack and assemble your cake, and it also gives you a great opportunity to do a little taste test before you make your cake. So once all of our cake layers were leveled, it was time to assemble our cake. I like to add a dab of buttercream onto my cake board to keep my first cake layer in place. And then I spread an even layer of our vegan buttercream onto our cake layer using my large offset spatula. This is totally optional, but I like to add a pretty generous layer of rainbow sprinkles between the cake layers too, just to add a bit more texture and another pop of color. Once all of our cake layers are stacked, I add a crumb coat around the cake with both my large offset spatula and my bench scraper to smooth it, and then I popped it into the freezer for about 10 minutes to help that crumb coat firm up. Then we add on our second thicker layer of frosting. I had this fancy frosting tip here which makes it a little bit easier to spread the frosting around the cake, but that's totally optional and you can just use an offset spatula as well. I wanted the outside of this cake to be just as colorful as the inside, so I colored my remaining frosting a few different colors and then piped bits of frosting all around the cake. I know that it looks a little bit crazy right now, but you really don't have to be too particular with this because we're actually going to smear them all together with our bench scraper. So it looks worse before it gets better, but just trust the process. You are going to remove a bit of frosting, and if there's any areas that you think need a little bit more color, you can always add an extra dab of frosting. So as you're spreading this, you're not trying to actually scrape off a ton of the frosting, you're really trying to just blend it together. Once you're happy with the look, you can clean up that top edge with a small offset spatula, and then if you want to and you have some pretty vegan sprinkles on hand, these ones are made by Sweet Tapalita and they work great. You can spread those around the base of the cake and even the top of the cake. I placed my remaining buttercream into a really large piping bag fit with a Teco 869 frosting tip and added some fun dollops around the top of my cake. And just like that, our Funfetti vegan cake is complete. So you can see our cake layers are so moist and tender. This really is such a delicious cake recipe. If you want to recreate it, you can find the recipe on Chelsweets.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully, I'll see you again soon.